Throughout the history of Walt Disney Animation, they have done a terrific job of making their animated films the definitive version of the material, or at least the version that has the most public association. When people think of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, they don't think of the Brothers Grimm fairy tale, they think of the 1937 animated film. Same for Cinderella, or Alice in Wonderland, or Bambi, Dumbo, The Little Mermaid, and more. None of those properties were created by the House of Mouse, but that company has cemented their legacy. And when people think of the Jungle Book, hardly anyone thinks about the collection of short stories written in 1894 by Rudyard Kipling. Instead, they think about the 1967 animated musical released by Disney and directed by Wolfgang Reitherman. Thanks to its captivating backdrops, memorable characters, and catchy music, The Jungle Book is one of Disney's most iconic animated films. Now in Disney's new wave of live-action remakes, director Jon Favreau is putting his stamp on the story with state-of-the-art CGI and an acclaimed cast. Does this movie do more than the bare necessities to get by, or will the original animated film continue to be the definitive version? Much like the great Cinderella movie last year, Disney's The Jungle Book is more or less a remake of the iconic animated film, as opposed to bringing in additional content from the original source material. Instead, it expands on the animated movie, adds more depth and themes, and translates the aesthetic into live action. The original Jungle Book movie is an iconic film, but watching it nearly 50 years later, it does serve as a short walking tour of the jungle setting, as opposed to working as a concrete narrative. The film is mainly held together by fun characters and songs that have become a staple of the Disney empire ever since. With that in mind, the additions this 2016 remake of The Jungle Book includes makes it superior in almost every single way when it comes to the story and character. For the first hour, it initially seemed like another walking tour movie with some disconnected scenes and characters coming together to hit the familiar beats of the animated film, but as it progresses, it ultimately tips its hat to reveal that it's dug deeper into the themes of adolescence and has definitely got more going on in the subtext than people would be expecting. Throughout the movie, Mowgli, and by proxy the audience, learn about the red flower, which is the name the animals in the jungle have given to fire. A source of great warmth, it has also brought destruction and death and is feared and desired by many denizens of the jungle. Shere Khan fears it because man used it to scar his face, but King Louie desires it so he can use it as a weapon and to rule. Basically, the red flower is the one ring of power in the Lord of the Rings universe, and the focus on it serves as the basis for Mowgli's growth. The big change to the original animated film is with Mowgli himself and how he needs to grow up and become his own person. He was raised as a wolf, but he doesn't run in formation with them. He's not as fast, but he's able to build and craft tools and weapons using his natural ingenuity. He takes the decision upon himself to leave the jungle after Shere Khan's threat so his wolf family don't have to, and he has to learn to grow up into adolescence, but Shere Khan's intervention, which results in the potential harm of his old family, requires Mowgli to make an important decision. Will he use the destructive and prejudice-free red flower for revenge, or will he use his creativity and ingenuity for preservation? The moments that caused these themes to click for me was the appearance of King Louie, who initially seemed like the fun-loving king from the original animated film, but quickly revealed himself as a deranged and mentally unstable lunatic who probably hasn't left his throne for years. King Louie wants Mowgli to make fire, and in return he will grant him whatever wish he wants, but when Mowgli tells him that he doesn't know how to make fire, he winds up chasing him throughout his castle in such a deranged state of mind that his own empire crumbles around him and ultimately ends up killing him, well, as far as someone can be killed in a Disney fairy tale. Louie is a reflection on what could happen if Mowgli decides to take the path that embraces the red flower, and having something like that demonstrated with such a memorable character helps to hit that point home. In recent years, we've had Disney try to promote scientific thinking and invention throughout their films. They've used characters in Iron Man and Ant-Man from their Marvel slate to fund schemes to get children into science. They promoted the ideal in Big Hero 6 last year, and in The Jungle Book, oddly enough, it's another movie that promotes these ideals, that necessity is the mother of invention, and that creativity and ingenuity is what makes a man, not destruction and fire. I guess you could say that the bare necessities are the mother of invention, but tish. That's not to say that the story is flawless, as there are a couple of structural issues. For example, the hypnotic snake Kaa only gets a single scene, and it feels more like an obligatory cameo than anything more substantial, except for the fact that she parlays valuable plot information that she couldn't have possibly known. It also feels like a subplot involving Shere Khan intimidating the wolf pack is missing a scene or two. One scene has Shere Khan injure Bagheera whilst in pursuit of Mowgli, who then escapes, but there isn't a moment where Shere Khan interrogates Bagheera to find out where he's going. A scene like that feels suspicious by its absence, and I wouldn't be surprised if we do get a few deleted scenes in the home media release, but a lot of that is made up for with new additions and added depth to the story, particularly with the world building and the characterization. Early on there's a drought in the jungle, and when the water level falls to reveal a large rock in the valley, the animals use that rock to signify peace with all the other species. We have added layers to the bear Baloo, who initially starts out as something akin to a con man who uses Mowgli to stock up on honey and as further excuses to be lazy and inactive. It's this engaging starting point that makes Baloo's changes in attitude and his actions throughout the course of the film flesh him out into a three-dimensional character. Whilst the original Baloo in the animated film was enjoyable, he was hardly three-dimensional. Minor characters like Kaa and Akela don't get much material to work with, but characters like Bagheera, King Louie and Raksha come across like fully formed characters, and Shere Khan, crikey Shere Khan, I could talk about how his added backstory helps to justify this character's actions, but the way he's sprinkled throughout the story always leaves the audience on the edge of their seat. In the original animated film, Shere Khan was always mentioned, but he barely appeared until the end, when he was quickly disposed of. Trust me, if you remember anything about Shere Khan in the animated film, it's solely because of George Sanders' imposing voiceover job. But Shere Khan's presence here is not only bolstered by a terrific layered performance by Idris Elba, but the scenes of him intimidating the wolf pack are legitimately intense. In fact, one scene where he acts almost parental to the wolf cubs in front of the mother Raksha made one kid in my screening cry out for his mummy, and I'm not making fun of that kid, just to clarify. I wanted my mummy too. Disney have been doing a great job with their live action villains recently, like Cate Blanchett's wicked stepmother in Cinderella, and Idris Elba's Shere Khan is just another one to add to the pile of successes, as well as King Louie. Performance-wise, I'm not going to say that Neil Sethi was a revelation as Mowgli, but in terms of leading actors who have to carry a special effects heavy blockbuster, he sure is one hell of a find. There are a few moments where he looks directionless, as he spent all of his time on a soundstage where he presumably talked to floating ping pong balls all day, but those are few and far between, as most of the time he acts convincingly alongside the walking, talking, singing animals and is a fun and engaging lead. He's another definite improvement from the original animated film, as the Mowgli there was mostly just a whiny cipher who walked from set piece to set piece, but across the board everyone here does stellar work. Ben Kingsley is a terrific Bagheera, Bill Murray is now the definitive Baloo and is so relaxed and endearing it's impossible to not love him, and Lupita Nyong'o brings so much needed emotional weight to the earlier scenes between Mowgli and the wolf pack. Christopher Walken as King Louie may seem like stunt casting at first, but the more you see of this character and the more rabidly intense he gets, the more you realise how perfect this casting is. Scarlett Johansson only has one scene as Kaa, but what she does is terrific, and if you stick around throughout the credits, you'll even hear her sing a rendition of Trust in Me, which isn't in the actual film. Speaking of the music, yes, there are some musical sequences taken from the animated film. The music by the Sherman Brothers and Terry Glickelson makes a few appearances here and there, with the bare necessities and I Want to Be Like You being included. Those who don't know anything about the original music may be caught off guard by their inclusion, but they're definitely welcome to the initiated. While the marching elephants do make an appearance in the movie, they're treated more as creator-like figures as opposed to marching comic relief. Personally, I feel like a version of Colonel Hattie's march from the original animated film would not have gone amiss, even if it was just a music cue in the soundtrack. But yes, Christopher Walken singing I Wanna Be Like You is worth the price of admission alone. In terms of the visuals, every so often I'd look at a small monkey or a flying squirrel and I'd think, yeah, that looks a bit off, but then I'd remember that the other 99% of the frame has been entirely created on a computer, and then I'd stop that silly talk. The Jungle Book is an astounding technical achievement. Filmed almost entirely on a soundstage in Los Angeles, the jungle setting is astonishingly convincing, and the environments are varied as well. We do have the tropical jungle, but we also have the wide open plains, the muddy canyons, rivers, and the transition from the bright jungle to the dark canopy where Kaa is found is akin to travelling from Cleethorpes to Grimsby. That's a little in-joke. The animals look amazing, with them all having presence and a sense of weight and scale. They're also incredibly expressive when you take into account the fact that there's not much motion capture, and the actors only really provided the voice work, yet you can still see Bill Murray's expression in Baloo or Christopher Walken's face on King Louie. The lighting, the water, even the clothing on Mowgli, it's all artificial, and how do you give the visual effects artists enough credit here? Jon Favreau has always utilised the latest in visual effects with Iron Man and Zathura, but The Jungle Book is on a whole other level, and musically, yes, the songs are great and the soundtrack is worth a listen, but the score by John Debney, who has collaborated with Favreau before on Elf, Zathura and Iron Man 2, is just as big in scale, with a huge variety of tracks. The music can be light-hearted, dramatic, intense, mythical and more, and Debney does not get a note wrong. So, after all of that, Here's my conclusion. Despite one or two story mishaps, after seeing this new version of The Jungle Book, I am having a hard time imagining anyone else making a more complete version of this material. While the animated movie has its charms, Jon Favreau's take is, quite frankly, superior in almost every respect. It's funny, smartly crafted, brilliantly cast, has great three-dimensional characters, is a visual spectacle, and even has respectable themes at its core. Honestly, while I'm intrigued to see what Andy Serkis has in store over at Warner Brothers for Jungle Book Origins in 2018, I can imagine him getting very, very nervous in the face of this accessible, enthralling, and brilliant epic. I give The Jungle Book 4.5 stars out of 5.
Only I can protect you.
He'll come back, and I'll be waiting.
Let go of your fear now. And trust in me.
Hello everyone, thanks for listening to my review. You can find these reviews a day or two early on my website, www.trilbee.com, so be sure to visit there where you can find a written version and other written content. But more importantly, what did you think of the film? Be sure to let me know in the comment section below. Be sure to subscribe for more movie related analysis. Be sure to hit that like button because that really helps me out, and you can support my content through Patreon and also get your name in the credits with these other lovely people and get exclusive perks and updates. I'll see you folks next time.